The Catholic Morning Show.
Little programming note. You may have heard the promotion there for our annual golf outing. That is just, I think it's sold out. Now, what we do have is a couple of foursomes that have some openings. So if you're an individual who wants to participate June 11th for our Iowa Catholic Radio golf outing, get a hold of us here at Iowa Catholic Radio, and we can plug you in with the team to enjoy a great day of fun, fellowship, and fairways. June 11th at Beaver Creek, 9 a.m. shotgun start. IowaCatholicRadio.com is where you can get more information. Well, as I said going into the break, the Fifth Commandment is maybe one that it gets overlooked because if you think about it, really, how many of us have killed somebody? Hopefully none of us.
I know I haven't.
That's solid. That's solid. I'm very proud of you, Alexia.
Thank you.
But, you're young. You have plenty of time left to, not really something to joke about tremendously, because this can be a serious topic as we look at some of the meaning behind this commandment. And to further our conversation, we welcome back into the Catholic Morning Show, Ed Van Buskirk. He is the founder of ifyouloveme.org. Ed, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing very well, and yes, you're right. This is a very serious topic, very important topic for us to not evade, but to look straight in the eyes and really understand it better.
Well, we had a conversation in the first segment today when we looked at the readings for this upcoming Sunday, and so very appropriate that we are touching upon the Ten Commandments, because we'll hear about Moses going up Mount Sinai with 2 stone tablets, and one of the things he came down with is this fifth commandment: "Thou shalt not kill." And let's kind of speak a little bit about sort of maybe that origin of that particular commandment to those people, and then what it means to us today.
Yeah, well, for the Egyptians and in their culture, where the Israelites had just come out of, death was a part of the culture. It was human sacrifice was a part of the culture to their false gods. And they had thousands and thousands, it seems like, of gods that just were idols of statues of material. But here we are in our culture today. You think, well, that we don't participate in that, but I think we should look a little bit harder and think of how we are sacrificing human life for the gods of our world, the strange gods. And when we talked about the first commandment, we talked about some of those strange gods, the gods of money, prestige, honor, the corner office, climbing up the corporate ladder, the gods of a big house, and entertainment, the sports world. What are we in our culture doing to sacrifice human life for those? And we think of how everything from abortion to birth control to transitioning, and how the false gods in our culture are confusing us and causing us to maybe accept those as just being cultural norms. And I used to go to confession and not look at this commandment. I still go to confession, but I would look at this commandment and skip right past it, thinking, well, this doesn't pertain to me. And I now spend a lot of time thinking about how might I be indirectly participating in our culture of death, through maybe who I vote for, or where are we investing our money for retirement? Are we participating indirectly? Are we purchasing items that are made by corporations that blatantly promote activities and ways of life that are detriments to life? Life is precious and holy and sacred, and we need to really look at this. It's a hard one to really look at, but Jesus is so much about life. He wants life for all of us, not just life here on earth, but eternal life. And so we really need to look at this and not just kind of brush it aside, thinking it doesn't really pertain to us. It truly does. And think of the gift of life. How wonderful is life? We all seem to strive to live longer because we love life. But we have come into this culture and think that the winds have shifted to where life of others can be sacrificed for our benefit, and we need to be careful of this.
Well, let's then talk about how this commandment is a part of Jesus' plan opposed to Satan's plan for life.
Yeah, and really, this is where the contrast becomes much easier to see. You think of Satan's strategy, his agenda. It started in the garden. When he gave Eve the idea that maybe she could become God, and really made God out to be the bad guy, and enticed her through covetousness to disobey God. And as soon as she disobeyed God, well, let's contrast the harmony and the happiness and the peace that Adam and Eve had in the garden before they disobeyed God. As soon as they disobeyed God, all that harmony went away. Adam and Eve were at odds with each other. It was her, the woman, who you made me, God, and now there's separation between Adam and God. You gave me this woman, and she gave it to me, and it's your fault. All the disharmony that happened. Satan started right there with division and disharmony and isolation. And this, we contrast this with what Jesus' plan is. Jesus' plan is one of life and truth. He in John 10:10, Jesus assures us. He says, "I came that they might have life and have it abundantly." And we think of, Jesus came and he gave his life so that we could have eternal life. And we hear Jesus in his words. He says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." And his whole life demonstrates the forgiveness. Satan wants to separate us and to have disharmony. Jesus draws us together in forgiveness.
So let's get into it right there.
Into communion with one another.
Yes, so I want to jump right in there, because what are some of the ways then, as we look at this commandment, that Satan trips us up? How does he deceive us, kind of recruit us into his way of life, just as he did there in the Garden of Eden?
Yeah, and it is just the way he did in the Garden of Eden. He's still playing the same trick, and we just don't recognize it very well. He sows doubt. First off, he sows doubt. Did God really say that you shouldn't look at pornography? Did God really say that you shouldn't do whatever it is? And he puts doubt into our minds. And when we start to foster that, we start to entertain that doubt, then he comes in just with a blatant lie. God knows that if you eat the apple, you'll become like God. And it's a lie, it's a promise, and that covetousness becomes in. Those two commandments that we haven't talked about yet on covetousness are so vital, because that covetousness is where we start to foster and cultivate the ideas that maybe we can pursue something at the detriment of others, even at the detriment of their death. And it's the same tactic that he's used in the garden that he's using right now. And it's causing isolation and loneliness, separation, disharmony. The isolation and loneliness in our culture is literally declared an epidemic by the Surgeon General of the United States a few years back. This separation. We need to unite people. We need to bring people together. And all of these commandments bring us together when we live them, when we embrace them, when we love them. They're not a list of rules to squelch us. They're a list of God's gifts and his recipe for life. And so knowing these commandments, living these commandments, brings us into that life with one another, that harmony, that joy, that friendship that we all yearn for.
We're speaking with Ed Van Buskirk, founder and president of If You Love Me, a Catholic apostolate dedicated to restoring God's truth and timeless wisdom. As we're making our way through this fifth commandment, I know Alexia has a question for you, Ed.
Yes.
Great.
I was wondering, what can each of us do to also remind ourselves and to remind others of their human dignity?
Well, one of the things is to recognize that it's not just somebody else, but we need to realize how we can promote the gift of life from conception to natural death, and realize that God has a plan for each person in every stage of our lives, and to not ignore this vital commandment, to bring it into our personal lives, and to have a commitment to not just protecting life, but to lifting up the gift of life with our children, to help them understand how important life is. and to thank God for our lives every day. We all know of people who have had some near-death type of situations with their health, and they come back, and boy, they have a different frame of mind. They understand how important it is for us to glean from their awakening of how important their life is from them, and to celebrate that life with them as well.
I think of the confiteor, right? In my thoughts, in my words, and what I have done and what I have failed to do. Ed, you've got a lot of depth and wisdom on this particular commandment that we probably could do a whole nother segment on. But I think
we could.
But I think maybe, and maybe we'll talk about doing that next week. But if we decide to stay on course and jump to the Sixth Commandment, where can people go to access some more thoughts and reflections upon this very important Fifth Commandment, thou shalt not kill?
Yeah, we have a variety of resources for learning and teaching the commandments to others at our website, godsrecipe.org, GODSRECIPE.org. Videos, download some sheets for kids to fill in. And one of the things, getting back to Alexa's question, is spiritually adopting a child. This is something that you can find on our website, how to spiritually adopt a child that's maybe in somebody's womb that you don't know and never will know, and give that child a name. And with your children, go through that experience of seeing how the child is being formed by God in the womb, and celebrate the life of that child.
That's a beautiful idea and a beautiful way to segue and remind people about the pilgrimage for the unborn taking place this weekend here in Des Moines. You can join us here at the Iowa Catholic Radio Studio at 8:55 Saturday morning as the pilgrimage arrives here and a rosary is prayed. A great opportunity, just as Ed said, to adopt a spiritual child, to pray for someone you don't know. Ed, again, thank you so much for joining us here on the Catholic Morning Show. We'll look forward to next week's conversation as we continue our way through the Ten Commandments.
Listen to the Catholic Morning Show weekdays at 7 a.m. Central on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network, iowacatholicradio.com, or the Iowa Catholic Radio app.